Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. We'll get it started here today. We're going to be talking about a couple different points. So we wanted to bring up three main points here today. First, quote unquote, don't let them or negative stuff bother you. The second point, NAR objection handlers. And then our third point, your value proposition as an agent. So going back to our first point here, last Wednesday, we went to the Family Business Forum in Elizabethtown and got to listen to a couple great speakers. This is an event that we look forward to going to every single year. And we get a lot of good ideas and inspiration from it. Okay, so our first speaker that we listened to at this event was Alden Mills, and he is a Navy SEAL, and he also is a business entrepreneur that started a couple different companies, as well as an inventor, holds a whole bunch of different patents. But he was relating, obviously his time in the military world and the training that he went through and his experiences to business and different lessons that you can gain because of it. So he started off by telling us, about Hell Week, the, training that he went through to become a SEAL. And as part of it, he was talking about this story of not letting what the instructors say get to you or bother you. And that hit home with my uncle and I. And, we could relate it to current situations with the NAR settlements. Uncle Tim, do you want to tell us more, about that story and how it relates to what we're going through?
So I sent everybody out this morning a handout, which was the presentation that Alden gave us at the High Center in Lancaster. And basically, what really got to me, and Justin McClure invites us to this thing every year. So after the seminar, I thanked him for sending us to this seminar again and told him what my takeaway was. And what I thought about and what I really got out of this seminar was, in his presentation, it said, do you want to be a frogman? Do you want to be a frogman? And so he wanted to become a Navy SEAL. And he was showing slides and telling us how difficult it is to become a Navy SEAL. And out of the entire group of people that go out to be a Navy SEAL, the sergeants or whomever, or the trainers of these Navy SEALs, their whole objection is to get you to quit. They want you to quit. And they want to get in your head so that you do quit, because they only want the best of the best in these situations that Navy SEALs have to participate in. And Brent, you could probably tell us on a SEAL, apparently it stands for sea and air and land, which I never know. But what was really interesting about this conversation and how it related to me was several different things. Number one, the NAR settlement and the current clients that are out there, buyers and sellers, we can't allow them to get in our head, because right now, with the social media posts and the Wall Street Journal posts about the puzzling part of what fee are you going to negotiate with your buyer or your seller, we can't let them get in our head. We have a value proposition that we bring to the table to navigate these buyers and sellers through one of the most complex transactions of their life. And I sent an email out to you this morning that you can edit and use as a social media post of the items that you use and could use on a listing presentation or a buyer presentation to negotiate your fee. But back to Alden again and letting them get in your head. It made me think of basketball too. It made me think of last year. I don't know how many of you watched the LSU Iowa game last night, but Iowa won in the women's basketball, and they were determined to win that game. But the previous year in the championship game, you'll remember all the signs, ring on the finger. What that girl was doing from LSU was getting in the heads of Iowa. All the smack talk that people give in basketball and football is to get in your head and distract you from the goal, which is winning the championship. We have to treat every transaction as it's a championship game, and we need to win it by either getting a buyer broker form signed that the buyer understands what they're signing, or getting a listing signed, which will have a marketable listing for you to sell. But we can't, again, let them get in our head. So it was interesting when this guy was talking about the Navy SEALs and the training. And I'm sure you've all seen videos and things of Navy SEALs training where they're locked arms and they're in the water and they're facing backwards and the water's crashing over their heads and they got mud all over their face. And they're just, as Brooks called it, they're in hell week. But what's interesting was he said everything that they practiced for before Hell Week, they did the exact same things in practice every single day or every week. They did a different aspect of this training until they perfected it. But then at the end of the training, they went through Hell Week where they had to do it all at one time for like a 3-day period or more where they weren't allowed to sleep. And now they had to go through this hell. But what they were saying is these guys were locked arms and in the water, trying to get him to quit, is they're screaming at him, they're yelling at him and blah, 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 trying to get him to quit. And then all of a sudden an ambulance pulls up and they start having the driver or the medic tell them about what could happen to their body if they're in this cold water for an X amount of period of time. And then after the medic tells these SEALs that are in training what could happen to them, well, what happened at that point? They started to get in their head. Oh my God, I could die. Oh my God, I'm going to freeze to death. And then they started talking to them about, ooh, there's hot cocoa in a warm van. If you just quit, you can have hot cocoa. They're getting in their head. And I really thought hard about this, and I'm thinking, wow, the Navy SEALs, that's what makes them a SEAL. They don't allow them to get in their head. These basketball players that are talking smack on the court, they're trying to get in their opponent's head. Well, guess what's happening to us right now? They're trying to get in our head. And we have got to be determined when we're on a listing appointment or a buyer agency appointment that we're not going to allow them to get in our head. We're not going to allow them to mess with our minds. We need to be determined. We need to know what to say. We need to have a handout like I sent to everybody about what our value propositions are, what things we're going to do for our fee. We need to show them and demonstrate to them that we don't just take a listing or take a buyer sale and show it and magically the deal happens. That we go through 90 different points or however many points you're going to have in your presentation. And these are the items that we're going to do. And this is how we earn our fee. So I just wanted to really point out to everybody that if you study these handouts that I sent you about mindset and the Navy SEALs, and if you study the handout that I gave you about what our value proposition is, and we don't allow them to get in our head, and we stay calm on these presentations and don't overreact to their questions, because people are going to question us now. You know, before you would say, okay, I sell property for X amount of commission, and they would simply sign the contract. But now they might question our fees. And we have to be able to answer and not react in a negative aspect. We've got to remain calm, and we have to know what to say. And we have to have an objection handler for everything that they're talking about. So in the coming weeks, I think that what we need to do is, after everybody focuses on these things that I've handed out, we need to then focus on everybody write an objection handler to what these possible new questions would be, and then let's share them with one another on the next call, so we can see, like, for instance, what your objection handler would be, Stacy, or what yours would be, Morgan, you know, or Dave White or Jim Penny or whoever's on this call. Let's work together and mastermind together to have the best objection handlers possible for when these tough questions come. And they are going to come. I mean, it's not a secret anymore. It's out. But we still bring value to the table. Listen, there's going to be a lot of agents that'll discount their own net worth right up front and say, oh, I'll work for $1,000 or whatever as a buyer's agent. I'll sell you the house for $1,000. They won't have enough courage to represent what they really think that they're worth. But guess what? You know, the average agent can't do more, typically more than one buyer transaction a week. It takes a lot to show a buyer a house, to get them pre-qualified, to start negotiating a contract, and to do more than one of those sales a week. Okay. So if you think about it, it's a hell of a lot easier to have 5 listings sell in one day than it is to try to do 2, 3, 4, or 5 buyer sales in a day or a week. One is a lot. Okay. And if you think about it, if they're only working for $1,000 and they want to make $100,000 a year, they'd have to do 100 transactions. Well, if you thought about it and you say, how many did you do last year? Well, the average agent has done 6 to 12 transactions across the country in the last year. That means if they do 6, they're going to make $6,000 this year by discounting themselves. Those people will eventually be out of the business. They might score a couple wins right up front, but don't let them screw with your mindset. They're never going to make it working for those type of fees, especially if somebody is making $5,000 or $6,000 a transaction and they do 10 deals. Now they've done $60,000. They do 20 deals, they make $120,000 if they make $6,000 a transaction. So these discount people will never make it. So don't worry about it if you lose a buyer because somebody else discounted their fee. This will all work itself out. What you need to focus on is, as we've said time and time again, every day, typically in our emails, make the calls, focus on listings, get listings. You're assured of a decent fee at that point from your seller. Convince your sellers that in order to throw out that net, in order to attract buyers and buyers agents to your property, they need to be compensated. Nothing's changed in that end. We just have to explain it a little bit better now than we did before, because it was assumed before that the buyer's agent would collect half of the commission from the listing agent. So we have to do a little bit better in explaining during our presentations of listings, during our presentations of buyers, of how the system works and how everybody gets paid. Does anybody have any questions on any of that, or about the mindset? Brent, does that bring up anything to you with your training? I know you weren't Navy SEALs, but you were Marine. Was it a mindset thing? And did they try to get you to quit, Brent?
Absolutely, 100%. And it's pretty much in every aspect of our lives. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. You literally have to control your mind, and we as humans are capable of anything. And we have to believe that. if we don't believe that, how in the world can we portray it? So you're absolutely right. It's the complete mindset of everything we do in our daily lives.
Yep. So mindset and objection handling are going to be the major things we all have to focus on. Where's Kathy? Are you on here? What did you get? What was your takeaway from that event that we saw? Because we saw two great speakers that day at the Family Business Forum.
I think the biggest takeaway is that it's not easy. If you keep working at it, though, it gets easier. Like you said, you can't give up, but the reward for working hard is worth it.
Okay. Brooksy, some of the things that you and I have talked about in reference to objection handling, I don't know if you, off the top of your head, you could come up with one, but you know, if you could elaborate on when somebody wants to cut your commission as a buyer's agent, what would you say?
Well, kind of going back to what you were saying, you know, if another, I'm sure you can find another agent that's willing to cut their commission here today. But if they're willing to do that upfront to you right now, not stand up for their own net worth, how strong are they going to be representing you and negotiating the contract on your behalf against that seller's agent? They're not going to be that great if they're willing to sell themselves out right away, right? I'm confident I charge X, whatever that fee is, and I will get the deal closed for you. You just got to be strong and confident in representing your fees.
Pong, are you on the call? I don't see you on my screen, but I see on the participants.
I'm just down here in Lancaster for a settlement.
Okay. Could you tell us what your biggest takeaway was from either Alden or the other speaker, Damon
John.
Yeah. What did you learn? Tell me what you learned from both of those individuals that spoke that night.
You know, whenever I hear these inspirational speakers that are very successful in business, I don't like to hear about their wins or anything, but I love to hear their failure. And Alden Mills, right off the bat, said, "Oh, I failed a lot," and he showed us this little equipment thing that he tried to sell, and it didn't work. And then they went back to the drawing table, and then they came up with those little push-up things that you see, you know, the little diskette with the handles on it. And that's where he made his money. And it's just very interesting to see and hear that it's okay to fail. But if you keep trying, you will succeed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Dad, what are your thoughts on this mindset thing and people getting into your heads and relating it to sports and how it relates to our business? We need to unmute Poppy. We can't hear you, Dad. You got to unmute.
I can only ask him.
There I am. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things are going through my head as we sit here and we listen. It's a matter of you believing in your own value and not somebody else's. Just for instance, when you're talking to a buyer's agent and the confrontation is coming from them, they're coming after you about your commission, and you say to them, "You're right, commissions are negotiable. It used to be that you know, we got a fee and we were willing to work for that fee up front, spending all of our monies and gas and time to find you a house. Things are changed now. You want me to work for less. I want a fee up front. If you do not want to work with me at a flat fee, then I want a fee up front for driving you around and hosting you until it comes." It is different. Which one of those would you prefer? A 2.5% or 3% commission, or 1,500 up front and the balance when we find you the house? You have got to start being creative in value for them and in value for you. And I don't know whether anybody ever looked at that approach, but it's certainly one that comes to my mind now that things are different. Give them choices, but make sure that the choice is always down the road that you want to go.
Okay, thank you. Brooks, one of the things that he was talking about, Alden again, in the mindset was, you have you're in a boat and you're looking out at the water. And he was saying, how far can you see? And everybody had different opinions. They were like 5 miles, 10 miles, 100 miles. And it turned out, he said, you can only really see 3 miles. And in this slide presentation I'm going to send you, it shows about your mindset and being in the boat, and then the horizon. And on the other side of the horizon is the goal that you want to get to. But what he was saying is, when you set the goal and you're in your boat, you can't see over the horizon. And the goal is over the horizon. And what's scary about what's over the horizon is it's the unknown. Well, that's where we are all right now. We're in the unknown, because between now and July, we can't get to the final goal of knowing how this transactions are going to be completed. So it's a little scary for everybody, because we can't see over the horizon. We can't predict how PAR is going to adjust our forms. And it's scary to everybody. What I'm saying is, again, don't overreact. Stay calm. Know what to say. Let's practice some objection handlers. And we will navigate over the horizon and get to the goal. And when we get to the goal in July, when we know what to do, we will be the best, because we will have practiced and we will have had the mindset that nobody's going to get in our head. We're not going to allow the media, the buyer, the seller to shake us up, because we will have made up our mind that we're going to get through it. One of the funniest things, Brent, that they said when the guys were in the water and all that crashing was down and they were trying to get in their head to get them to quit, was they focused their mindset on something else. They sang songs, and they wouldn't, no matter what they said, they didn't listen to it and didn't allow it to get in their head. They sat there and sang songs and looked up in the air and didn't allow this screaming to get in their head. Don't allow the media's screaming right now to get in your head. Let's be the best and let's focus on it. Does anybody have any questions about what we're in for over the next couple of weeks and months? Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to it?
I don't
Jim
have any
Penny?
questions, but I'm like excited, to be honest. I'm probably one of you, because for years I have said I wish that some of these agents would kind of naturally go away. And I am excited in the fact that I think this is going to be the thing that pushes those extra agents out of our market. And I mean, we all know what to do. We may not be able to see over the horizon after July, but like we know how to bust our butt until then. And we're set with a broker who, no matter what comes across that horizon in July, we're going to figure it out. So I want them all to panic, go away, and then we'll figure it out in July.
Good. Thank you, Stacy. Jim Penny, you had a question?
Well, yeah, just a general question, Tim. This isn't really anything new, but it pertains to what you're saying. I call a lot of FSBOs and expireds, and there's this one guy I've been trying to get for like the last month or two. I actually went down to York to look at a property with him, but he keeps telling me that he has like 3 or 4 other people that have said they'll do it for 4%, and he hasn't agreed to do anything yet. And, I kind of have tried to stand my ground, and, I know we have to have a little wiggle room. I said I'd do it for 5, but I said I was not willing to go that low. And I just wondered what your feeling about that is. Again, standing up for your value. I mean, I could probably say 4, I think he likes me, maybe I'd get the business, but do I really want to devalue what we do to that degree? You know, I
Right.
don't know.
So asking questions to him would be the most important thing. What's most important for you, sir? Is it to get the lowest commission, or is it to get the highest net amount in your pocket?
Hmm.
See, I know what I can do. I can bring the best offer to you because I'm more experienced. Let me show you some of the things that I do to get homes sold. And you agree with them, and then you handle the objection. And handling of the objection would be demonstrating to him, showing him what your value proposition is, and how the most important thing to him should be what he ends up netting in his pocket, not the lowest commission that he pays.
Sure.
So, Steve, did you have something, Steve Voorhees? I thought I saw you raise your hand for a second.
No, I was just giving a thumbs up to something someone
Oh,
said.
okay. Sounds good. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add to the conversation about mindset, objection handling, and not letting them get in your head? Or can you relate? I mean, Tom Chaletnik, you've been involved in sports forever. And, you know, do you see that same thing of the smack talk of how people get in your head? We need to unmute. There you go.
You know, I haven't experienced it with buyers and sellers yet, but want to share something with you guys. There's a guy, Steve Voss. Used to be a negotiator for the FBI and for kidnappings and stuff like that. And he's got a book out called The Full Fee Agent. Full Fee Agent. And it's an audio book. I listened to it a while ago, but now since this happened, I started listening to it again. It's catered to real estate agents, obviously. How to handle objections, and it really is a good book if you want to read it or get it on audio. Get it as an audio book. I just started it again and into like chapter 2. When I'm driving, I listen to it, but it's really good, and they tell you how to. Stuff we've all heard, but it's always good to hear stuff over and over again because it just sinks in, gives you different ways to approach people. Find out, you go on a listing appointment, a lot of times the seller already knows who they're going to pick. If you're a favorite or you're just there to give information, how to ask the questions. The big thing is ask the questions to find out where you stand so you're not wasting your time, and see what's most important to them. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, but it's a book that I think everyone could benefit from. You get a chance, look it up and listen to it. But
Yeah,
I think
Brooks,
you'll like it.
we'll send that out in the recap then. It
Yeah.
was the full fee agent?
Yeah, Full Fee Agent.
Full fee agent. We'll send the link out on that for
Yeah.
everybody to remember. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tim, question for you is you're talking to these other brokers. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from other brokers out there? They pretty much laying back and waiting to see what happens before they make determinations, or, are you how are they thinking about approaching this flat fee staying? I don't see the commissions changing.
I don't believe that they will. Like I said, they might in the beginning slightly, because you'll have these discount agents that don't have the confidence in themselves to discount, at least on the buyer side. I don't see the listing side changing at all. But on the buyer side, I think we might see that. But I think most brokers are doing exactly what you said. They're kind of sitting back. They're following the guidance of NAR and PAR. And we listened to an example from Jim Goldsmith the other day, and that it's really hard to determine what the solutions are going to be. We're not going to know till July, and once these cases are settled, although they are working on amending some of the paperwork. For instance, Tom, one of the changes that they're going to make to our buyer broker form, which we went over last week on that call, is that if you sign a buyer broker form and you say, I'm going to do it for a flat fee of $1,500 or $2,000, and let's say that it's a $300,000 house, and the seller's concession towards your commission would be 3%, hypothetically. So 3 times 3 is $9,000. Before, with our buyer broker form, we would accept whatever fee that the seller was offering, and we would not enforce the buyer broker form, or we would enforce it. In this particular case, if you signed a buyer broker form and you're only going to make $2,000 and the seller's offering $9,000, you can't take the difference. You have to, you can only take the $2,000 that's in your form. That's one of the changes that's coming down in the buyer broker agreement. You're limited to whatever amount you have in that fee, in that thing. Because, you know, years ago, we would just hypothetically say, okay, our minimum might be hypothetically 2.5% that we would work for. And all of a sudden the seller was offering 3.5%. We took the 3.5%. Can't do that anymore. You're limited to whatever fees in your buyer broker. So that's one of the changes that is definitely being amended in that agreement.
I think we're going to see eventually that they're going to get away from dual agency. If they're really going to focus on ethics and they're making this move, there is no way ethically an agent anymore can honor both people if we're going to take it from all these other buyers agents. So I think that's going to end up going away eventually. And I caution anyone who's looking to discount into a $1,500 or $2,000 fee, because the first time that they have a claim on their E&O insurance and they got to pay a $5,000 deductible, they're in the hole. So that is one thing I have said to sellers who have asked me about this. I'm like, hey, you can pay the discount, but then you may be open for more litigation issues if I don't have the ability to cover E&O insurance on this deal.
Yep, good point, Stacy. Thank you. Bob Stevens, you sat in on that Board of Realtors meeting the other day that we had. What was your takeaways from Jim Goldsmith and the board? We need you to unmute first.
There was Tim, there was a video that was put out. I think it was sent out. GAR sends out their weekly thing. I clicked on it yesterday. It was Jim Goldsmith, the lady from who's on the forms committee, and Jim Spagnola was on there.
Yeah,
it was very good. It was about an hour long.
That was the meeting that Bob sat in on. Yeah,
everyone should listen to that. Goldsmith brings up some good points, and going to Stacy talking about the dual agency. He specifically says in there, you don't need to represent a buyer. Too many people think they need to do the dual agent. You don't need to represent a buyer, and that's what's going to end up happening. You're going to get buyers call listing agent. Listing agent's going to end up doing both sides of it without representing the buyer on it. Now down the road, is that going to open up to litigation? That could be an issue, but he just specifically said right in that, it's a good conversation he has there. He brings up a lot of good points that we don't need to represent these buyers, and we can take the whole commission on our own. And you know, I think that's where you're going to see agents say, hey, I'm going to list your house for 2.5% or 3%. You don't have to give a buyer's agent commission. It's up to you. It's up to us as agents to convince them it's better for them for buyer's agents to come in. And that's just going to be how we word it and try to show the value of that. You know, and I think that's where people will discount it. Well, if I'm not representing the buyer, you know, then maybe I'll discount you 1%, you know, or do something like that. But dual agency is going to be an issue. I think it's going to set it up for a lot of liability issues down the road.
Yep.
My opinion.
Most of the problems that I get that I have to help solve for our agents. A lot of it is over dual agency. Yep. Bobby, you were on that
Yeah,
call. Tom
I
listened
think
to the
that
video.
call was extremely interesting. The one thing that I agree with Tom, dual agency is already a problem. The people, the first time buyers in particular that I've had in for an interview to get the whole process started, when I cover dual agency, they say, well, how can you really handle, not all of them, but several of them have said, how can you handle both sides? And you come out with a weak a statement like, well, we owe a responsibility of honesty and fair play to both sides. Well, that kind of goes in one ear and one out and out the other side. So I think we already have a problem in trying to explain dual agency when we're talking to first time buyer. Well, one thing I did want to point out is that in the commission structure, when you're up against competition, of late, some of you know that my wife had lung cancer. I have used that effectively when I'm talking to somebody that gives me the indication that they're looking for a lower commission or a different price. And I simply say, well, in my case, I can tell you from personal experience what I've had with someone who doesn't have the experience that I do, is that when she was diagnosed with a spot on her lung, she was told that she had about 6 months and we'll see if it grows and looks any differently. A friend of hers said, I don't think you want to do that. I think you want to get a second opinion. And that was sent to Johns Hopkins. And the doctor, Johns Hopkins, called her on Friday and said, I'd like to see you. Can you be here on Tuesday? And as it turned out, it was a very, very aggressive form of lung cancer. And today she's walking around, she's fine, and she's basically cured. But do you want to run the risk of having somebody that maybe is not as experienced as I am to handle that case for you? And I think that that resonates with people.
Yep. Bobby, you're absolutely right. And I sort of sent something like that out last week in those emails of, if you were on trial for your life, would you want the best attorney to represent you or the new one right out of school?
Right.
You know, the same thing with the doctor and the opinions. You know, the same thing with if you're a football coach and it's the Super Bowl and there's 10 seconds left in the game and you're on the 1 yard line, who you putting in the game? You putting the rookie in, or you putting the guy that's got the most experience that you know can get the job done? We got to have the belief that we have value, that we bring value to the transaction. And like I said, we just have to learn how to present this a little bit better to these clients here. And we need to do that through practicing and objection handling. Dad, for one last closing remark, where's your mindset today? I know where your mindset is. Your mindset is you're coming back to the office. And your belief is, I can, not I can't. Is that correct?
You have to have that ability to believe that you're the best. That comes through a system of things that most people don't practice. One of them is as I listen to this call, how much time do each one of us spend on qualifying these people that we're taking out as buyers? And how much time do we take in qualifying these people as sellers as to what they will do? How much lower will they go on their price? Will they drop their commission? Are you asking these questions? no matter what the answer would be. We were on a call, and I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to bash people, but the agent said, well, I just won't work with those people. I just won't work with those people out of business. But if you're taking out a young buyer and you have them totally pre-qualified and they start negotiating fees with you, then you have the ability to say, my chances of selling you a home are about 30% to 70% failure. And you're going to ask me to reduce my fee. If you were in my position, would you do it? These are the kind of objection handlers and things that you have to start thinking about that you never talked about before. But you really won't know until you qualify these people out totally, both as buyers and sellers. It's the most important point from here on in that we can ever do with our negotiation, because there's some buyers you're going to want to cut loose. You know, if you got some crazy guy that wants to have you hired and pay, and he wants to pay you $1,500, is he worth it in the end? Stacy brought up a tremendous point that I hadn't thought of before. Hey, I at least have to have a minimum fee to cover my insurance deductible if something goes wrong with your deal. I mean, I think that's a fantastic objection handler. So yeah, be a student of your business. This is a business that's forever changing, and it changes through us having the ability to handle the objections that everybody's looking to give us. And the best objection handler will absolutely survive any situation that's coming in real estate or any other problem. I truly believe that, and the discipline to practice that every day is very tough. It's a Navy SEAL discipline that you have to have. Most of us don't have it.
So Dad,
Yeah.
you can or you can't?
Always can. Always can. Nothing. Doesn't matter what it is. It's just like, and I have difficulties myself, and every day I have to say to myself, get your ass up, get out of here, and become the person that you want to be, not could be. There's a world of difference with that. I think it's a great call today. Have a great day, all you guys.
Thank you. Good job, Brooks. Good job, everybody that participated. And hopefully we'll see you on next week's call.